The sky above New York City darkened as something massive blocked out the sun. People stopped in their tracks, craning their necks upward, unsure of what they were seeing. It wasn't a cloud or an airplane. It was too big, too silent. The object shimmered like liquid metal, its surface rippling faintly as if alive. Panic spread quickly through the streets as people realized this was no ordinary phenomenon. This was something alien. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the rooftop of a government building, his eyes fixed on the enormous craft hovering above Manhattan. His radio crackled with updates from ground teams and frantic calls from civilians. The military had already cordoned off several blocks, but it was clear that whatever this thing was, it wasn't going away anytime soon. Ryan tightened his grip on his rifle, though he knew deep down that a weapon might not do much against something so otherworldly. "Captain," a voice called behind him. He turned to see Laura Bennett climbing onto the roof, her long coat flapping in the wind. She carried a tablet under one arm and looked more curious than scared. As an astrophysicist, she'd been summoned to help make sense of the situation. Her expertise in extraterrestrial life made her one of the few people who could offer insight into what they were dealing with. "What do we know?" Ryan asked, nodding toward the ship. "Not much," Laura admitted, setting her tablet down on a nearby ledge. "It's huge, miles across, and it hasn't moved since it arrived. No signals, no signs of communication. Just silence." Ryan frowned. Silence wasn't good. In his experience, silence usually meant trouble. "We've tried hailing them." "Repeatedly," Laura said. "Nothing. But I've got some ideas about how we can try again." Before she could elaborate, a low hum filled the air. Everyone froze, looking up as small objects detached from the underside of the alien ship. They descended slowly, glowing faintly as they approached the ground. These weren't ships themselves, but smaller drones, each about the size of a car. They hovered silently above the streets, moving erratically as if scanning their surroundings. "Hold your fire," Ryan barked into his radio, knowing the soldiers below would be itching to shoot first and ask questions later. The last thing they needed was to provoke these visitors without understanding their intentions. But provocation came anyway. One of the drones drifted too close to a group of soldiers, and someone panicked. A single gunshot rang out, echoing through the city. The bullet zipped past the drone, but instead of hitting it, the shot seemed to pass right through, as if the drone didn't exist at all. "What the hell?" one of the soldiers muttered over the radio. Ryan watched in disbelief as the drone continued to hover, unaffected. Another soldier fired again, and once more, the bullet phased through harmlessly. The drones didn't retaliate, didn't even acknowledge the attack. Instead, they simply floated there, almost as if they were waiting for something. Laura stared at the scene, her brow furrowed. "That's impossible," she whispered. "What is?" Ryan asked, glancing at her. "They're not ignoring us," she said slowly. "They're untouchable, like they're operating on a completely different level than we are." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Untouchable. If they couldn't hurt the drones, then what chance did they have against the mothership? And why weren't the aliens fighting back? For now, the city held its breath, caught between fear and fascination. Whatever these beings wanted, Ryan knew one thing for certain. Humanity was playing a game it didn't understand, and losing wasn't an option. The drones continued to hover silently above the streets of Manhattan, their presence both eerie and mesmerizing. People watched from behind barricades or through windows, unsure whether to feel relieved that the aliens hadn't attacked yet or terrified by what might come next. Captain Ryan Carter paced back and forth on the rooftop, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Why were the drones here? What did they want? And most importantly, why hadn't they retaliated when fired upon? Laura Bennett stood nearby, her eyes glued to her tablet as she analyzed data streaming in from surveillance cameras and military sensors. She replayed footage of the earlier encounter, frame by frame, trying to understand how the bullets had passed harmlessly through the drones. It didn't make sense. No known material could phase through solid objects like that. The implications were staggering. If these drones weren't bound by the same physical laws as everything else, then humanity was dealing with technology far beyond its comprehension. Something's off, Laura muttered aloud, tapping furiously at her screen. Ryan glanced over. What do you mean? She hesitated before answering, choosing her words carefully. It's not just that our weapons don't work on them. Look at how they reacted after we shot at them. Ryan frowned. Reacted? They didn't do anything. That's exactly my point, Laura said, turning the tablet toward him. On the screen was a slowed-down clip of one of the drones jerking slightly after being fired at. At first glance, it seemed random, but upon closer inspection, there was something almost nervous about the movement. They're responding, she explained. Not aggressively, but defensively, like they're scared. Ryan stared at the footage, unconvinced. Scared? Of us? We can't even touch them. Maybe not physically, Laura replied, but think about it. They're clearly advanced enough to ignore our attacks, but they still reacted emotionally. That tells me they're not invincible conquerors. They're intelligent beings who feel fear. Her words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. If the aliens were afraid, then perhaps humanity wasn't the only side with something to lose. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He'd spent years training for combat scenarios, but this was uncharted territory. How was he supposed to lead his team against an enemy that couldn't fight, let alone understand? Down below, another incident unfolded. A group of civilians had gathered near one of the drones, shouting questions and waving makeshift signs. Some begged for peace while others demanded answers. Tensions escalated when someone threw a rock at the drone. The object sailed through the air, striking the drone dead center, and passing right through it, just like the bullets had. The crowd gasped, some stepping back in awe while others pressed forward, emboldened by the lack of retaliation. Ryan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. This is getting out of hand, he growled into his radio. Tell everyone to stay back. No more provoking them. But enforcing order was easier said than done. Reports poured in from all over the city. More drones appearing, more people testing their limits, more confusion spreading like wildfire. Each new development only deepened the mystery surrounding the aliens' intentions. Were they here to observe, to warn, or simply to wait? Later that evening, Ryan joined Laura in a makeshift command center set up inside a nearby government building. Scientists, military personnel, and government officials crowded around tables covered in maps, charts, and computer screens. The room buzzed with theories and debates, but no one had any concrete answers. Laura stood apart from the chaos, scribbling notes on a whiteboard as she pieced together fragments of information. We need to figure out what they're doing here, Ryan said, leaning against a wall. And fast. Every second we waste gives them more time to. To what? Laura interrupted, turning to face him. To scare us. Because that's working pretty well already. Ryan opened his mouth to argue but stopped himself. She was right. Fear was spreading faster than any weapon could, sowing doubt and paranoia among both soldiers and civilians. The longer they went without understanding the aliens' purpose, the harder it would be to maintain control. As the night wore on, Laura proposed a risky idea, using lights and coordinated movements to mimic the patterns displayed by the drones. If the aliens communicated through motion, maybe humanity could respond in kind. Ryan listened skeptically, but agreed it was worth a shot. After all, they had nothing to lose, and potentially everything to gain. By morning, the command center was a hive of activity. Scientists and military personnel worked side by side, analyzing every scrap of data they had on the alien drones. Laura Bennett moved quickly between tables, her mind racing as she tried to piece together the puzzle. Theories were flying around the room, some wild and others grounded in science, but none fully explained what the aliens wanted or why their drones seemed untouchable. Dr. Ethan Grant, a physicist with messy hair and a perpetually distracted expression, approached Laura near a monitor displaying footage of the drones. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," he began, adjusting his glasses, "about the drones reacting emotionally." Laura nodded, urging him to continue. "What if they're not just advanced? They're operating on a completely different plane," Ethan suggested. "Like maybe they exist partially in another dimension. That would explain why our bullets passed through them." Laura tilted her head, considering the idea. "You mean, like they're only partially here?" "Exactly," Ethan replied. "Think of it like a shadow. You can see it, but you can't touch it. Maybe these drones are projections or extensions of something else entirely." The explanation made sense, but it raised even more questions. If the drones were dimensional anomalies, then how did the aliens control them? And what did that say about their technology or their biology? Captain Ryan Carter listened to the conversation from nearby, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. He wasn't a scientist, and much of the technical jargon went over his head. But one thing was clear: humanity was outmatched. The thought gnawed at him. As a soldier, he'd always believed in strength and strategy, but neither seemed to matter now. How could you fight an enemy you couldn't even reach? Ryan's frustration boiled over during a meeting later that day. Officials from various agencies argued loudly about how to proceed. Some wanted to launch a full-scale assault, hoping overwhelming force might scare the aliens into leaving. Others advocated for diplomacy, pointing out that attacking could provoke retaliation. Ryan sat silently through most of it, his jaw clenched, until someone mentioned evacuating parts of the city. "No," Ryan said firmly, cutting off the speaker mid-sentence. "We don't run. Not yet." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. "We don't know enough about them to make decisions like that," Ryan continued. "If we start pulling people out, it'll look like we're giving up. And if these aliens really are scared of us, running won't help. We need answers first." Laura nodded in agreement. "He's right. Evacuating will only create panic. Right now, the best thing we can do is try to communicate." "But how?" asked one of the officials. "They haven't responded to anything so far." "That's because we haven't spoken their language," Laura replied. She pointed to a diagram on the wall showing patterns of light and movement captured from the drone's behavior. "Their communication isn't verbal, it's visual. They're using motion and geometry to send messages. If we want to talk to them, we need to do the same." Her suggestion sparked a flurry of activity. Engineers and tech specialists scrambled to assemble equipment capable of mimicking the drone's movements. Using lights, drones borrowed from the military, and carefully choreographed patterns, they hoped to send a message back to the aliens. It was a long shot, but it was the only plan they had. As the team worked, Ryan pulled Laura aside. "Do you really think this will work?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we have to try. If we don't, we risk escalating things without understanding what's at stake." Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "And if it doesn't work, what then?" "Then we figure out Plan B," Laura said with a small smile. "One step at a time." Hours passed as preparations continued. By evening, the team had constructed a crude version of their response, a series of flashing lights and synchronized movements designed to mirror the patterns observed in the drones. The setup was positioned on the roof of a nearby building, within view of several drones hovering nearby. As night fell, the team activated the system. Beams of light pulsed rhythmically, forming shapes and sequences meant to convey peace and curiosity. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The alien drones remained still, their glowing surfaces reflecting faintly in the darkness. Then, slowly, one of the drones shifted position. Its movements matched the pattern of lights below, almost as if it were responding. A murmur of excitement rippled through the team. Had they done it? Had they actually communicated? But just as hope began to rise, the drone stopped moving again, returning to its previous state. Silence settled over the rooftop once more. The days that followed were tense and exhausting. After the failed attempt to communicate using lights and patterns, the team regrouped in the command center, trying to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. Laura Bennett spent hours reviewing footage of the interaction between their setup and the alien drone. She replayed the sequence over and over, zooming in on every movement, every flicker of light. Something about the drone's response felt deliberate, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Captain Ryan Carter watched her from across the room, his arms crossed as he leaned against a table. He admired her determination, but he also saw the toll this was taking on her. Dark circles had formed under her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she tapped away at her tablet. Still, she refused to give up, pouring all her energy into solving the mystery. Anything? Ryan asked finally, breaking the silence. Laura glanced up, shaking her head. Not yet. But there's something off about the way the drone reacted. It didn't just copy us. It adjusted its movements slightly. Ryan frowned. Adjusted? What do you mean? She pointed to a section of the video where the drone's flight path curved slightly after mimicking one of their patterns. See that? It's subtle, but it's there, like it was adding its own layer to the message. Ryan stared at the screen, unsure what to make of it. So, they're talking back, but we don't understand what they're saying. Exactly, Laura said, leaning back in her chair with a sigh. It's like they're speaking a language we've never heard before. We're close, though. I can feel it. While Laura worked on deciphering the alien communication, reports came in from other parts of the city. More drones had appeared, spreading out across Manhattan, and even venturing into neighboring boroughs. Civilians continued to test the limits of the visitors, throwing objects or shouting insults, but the drones remained passive, their glowing surfaces untouched by human hostility. One incident stood out among the rest. A group of teenagers had managed to corner a drone near Central Park, pelting it with rocks and sticks. When none of their attempts caused any damage, frustration turned to fear. One boy screamed at the drone, waving his arms wildly, while another ran away in tears. The drone hovered silently, its movements slow and deliberate, almost as if it were observing them. Laura reviewed the footage later, her heart sinking as she watched the scene unfold. "This is bad," she murmured. "Really bad." "What is?" Ryan asked, stepping closer. "They're learning," Laura said, her voice low. "Every time someone interacts with them, whether it's attacking or trying to talk, they're gathering information. And not just about our technology. About us, our behavior, our emotions, everything." Ryan's stomach tightened. "You think they're studying us?" "I know they are," Laura replied. "And if we keep acting like this, panicked, aggressive, we're giving them the wrong impression." Her words weighed heavily on Ryan. He knew she was right. Humanity wasn't exactly presenting its best face to these visitors. Fear and confusion were driving people to act irrationally, and the lack of clear leadership wasn't helping. He needed to step up, to find a way to restore order before things spiraled further out of control. Later that evening, Ryan joined Laura on the rooftop, where they'd attempted their first communication. The air was cool, and the city lights twinkled below, a stark contrast to the looming alien ship above. They stood side by side, watching as drones drifted lazily through the sky. "You ever wonder why they haven't left yet?" Ryan asked after a long pause. "All the time," Laura admitted. "They could have gone anywhere, done anything. But they're still here. That has to mean something." "Maybe they're waiting for us to prove ourselves," Ryan suggested, "to show them we're worth dealing with." Laura nodded slowly. "Or maybe they're scared too. Think about it. If they're refugees running from something worse than us, then finding a safe place would be everything to them." The idea gave Ryan pause. Refugees. Was that possible? Could these beings, with their advanced technology and mysterious presence, truly be fleeing danger? If so, it changed everything. Humanity wasn't just facing an unknown threat. It might be dealing with survivors desperate for help. As they stood there, lost in thought, one of the drones approached the rooftop. It hovered closer than usual, its surface shimmering faintly. For a moment, neither Ryan nor Laura moved, unsure what to expect. Then, without warning, the drone projected a series of holographic images onto the ground below. The images showed planets engulfed in flames, cities crumbling into dust, and creatures unlike anything they'd ever seen. The final image depicted a massive fleet of ships chasing smaller vessels through space. The holographic images lingered in the air long after the drone had drifted away, leaving Ryan and Laura standing in stunned silence. The weight of what they'd just seen pressed down on them like a physical force. Planets destroyed, civilizations wiped out. It wasn't just destruction. It was annihilation on a scale humanity couldn't fully comprehend. And yet, amid the chaos depicted in the projections, there was something else: desperation. These aliens weren't conquerors or invaders. They were survivors. Laura broke the silence first, her voice trembling slightly. "They're not here to hurt us," she said softly. "They're running from something." Ryan nodded slowly, his mind racing. "And whatever's chasing them, it's bad." "Worse than bad," Laura corrected, turning to face him. "If those images are accurate, and I think they are, then this isn't just about survival. It's about extinction." Her words hung between them, heavy with implications. If the aliens were refugees fleeing a greater threat, then humanity faced a choice: offer sanctuary or turn them away. But either decision came with risks. Helping the aliens could mean inviting danger into their own backyard, while refusing might condemn an entire species to death. "We need to tell the others," Ryan said finally, breaking the spell. "Show them what we saw." Laura hesitated. "Do you really think they'll believe us?" "They have to," Ryan replied firmly. "This changes everything." Back at the command center, the team gathered around a large monitor as Laura replayed the footage of the holographic images. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the devastating scenes unfolded before their eyes. Some looked horrified, others skeptical, but no one could deny the authenticity of the message. This wasn't some abstract threat. It was real, visceral, and terrifying. Dr. Ethan Grant adjusted his glasses, leaning closer to the screen. "This explains why they've been so cautious," he said thoughtfully. "If they're being hunted, they can't afford to trust anyone, not even us." "But why show us this now?" one of the military officers asked. "Why not sooner?" "Maybe they didn't think we were ready," Laura suggested. "Or maybe they wanted to see how we'd react first. Either way, they're asking for help." The room erupted into debate. Some argued that aiding the aliens was too dangerous, pointing out that their advanced technology could be used against humanity if trust turned sour. Others insisted it was the right thing to do, emphasizing the moral obligation to assist those in need. Amid the chaos, Ryan stepped forward, raising his hand to quiet the group. "We don't have time for arguments," he said firmly. "This isn't just about us anymore. Whatever's coming for them could come for us too. We need to decide, together, what we're going to do." His words silenced the room, forcing everyone to confront the reality of the situation. Humanity wasn't facing an isolated incident. It was part of something much bigger, something potentially catastrophic. Over the next few hours, the team worked tirelessly to craft a response. Using the patterns and movements they'd observed from the drones, they designed a new sequence meant to convey understanding and compassion. Lights pulsed rhythmically, forming shapes that mirrored the aliens' earlier messages. Drones borrowed from the military traced intricate paths in the sky, mimicking the fluid motions of the alien ships. It was clumsy compared to the precision of the visitors, but it was the best they could do. As night fell, the team activated their setup once more, this time on a larger scale. Dozens of lights flickered across the rooftop, accompanied by carefully coordinated movements of human-made drones. For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, one of the alien drones descended closer, its surface shimmering faintly. It began to move, tracing patterns in the air that matched and expanded upon the ones the humans had created. The team watched in awe as the drone wove through the sky, its flight path almost hypnotic. Laura's breath caught in her throat as she realized what was happening. The aliens were responding, not just acknowledging their efforts but building on them. "They're talking back," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Ryan stood beside her, his expression unreadable. "What are they saying?" Laura shook her head. "I don't know yet, but it's more than just shapes and lines. There's meaning here, if we can figure it out." For the first time since the aliens' arrival, a glimmer of hope emerged. Communication was possible. Understanding, even cooperation, might be within reach. But as the drone hovered silently above them, its movements steady and deliberate, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were still only scratching the surface. Whatever the aliens truly wanted, whatever they needed, it was clear that humanity's role in their story was far from over. The breakthrough came at dawn. After hours of analyzing the alien drone's movements, Laura Bennett finally cracked part of the code. The patterns weren't random. They were mathematical sequences, a universal language that transcended spoken words. With Dr. Ethan Grant's help, she deciphered one sequence and translated it into English. "We seek sanctuary." The revelation sent shockwaves through the command center. Humanity wasn't dealing with invaders or conquerors, but with beings desperate for safety. For refugees, the implications were staggering. If these aliens were fleeing a greater threat, then helping them might mean saving not only their species, but potentially Earth as well. Captain Ryan Carter stood by the window, staring out at the alien ship still hovering over Manhattan. He felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Offering sanctuary was risky, dangerous, even, but turning them away felt wrong. These beings had shown no hostility. Instead, they had communicated honestly, sharing glimpses of their past and pleading for help. "We can't ignore this," Laura said, breaking his thoughts. She held up her tablet, showing him the translation. "This changes everything." Ryan nodded slowly. "It does, but convincing everyone else won't be easy." News of the aliens' plea leaked to the public faster than anyone expected. Social media exploded with reactions, dividing people into two camps. Some argued that humanity had a moral duty to help, pointing out the parallels between the aliens' plight and human history. Others saw the request as a trap, warning that trusting the aliens could lead to disaster. Governments around the world scrambled to respond, torn between fear and compassion. In New York City, protests erupted in the streets. Signs reading "Help them" clashed with others demanding "Protect Earth." Reporters crowded outside the command center, shouting questions at anyone who stepped outside. The pressure mounted, and tensions ran high among the team. Laura worked tirelessly to build support for aiding the aliens. She gave interviews, explaining the evidence and emphasizing the potential benefits of cooperation. "Their technology could revolutionize our world," she told one journalist. "But more importantly, we have a chance to show what kind of species we are, to choose kindness over fear." Despite her efforts, skepticism remained strong. Military leaders worried about the risks, while politicians feared backlash from their constituents. Even within the team, opinions were divided. Dr. Ethan Grant supported Laura's stance, arguing that rejecting the aliens could isolate humanity in the face of future threats. Others, however, sided with caution, urging patience before making any commitments. Amid the chaos, the aliens made another move, one that silenced critics and stunned supporters alike. Early one morning, the massive ship descended lower over the city, its surface shimmering like sunlight on water. A single drone emerged, larger than the others, and hovered directly above a damaged section of Manhattan. Without warning, the drone began to emit a soft glow, and the air around it seemed to hum with energy. People watched in awe as buildings crumbled by years of neglect and destruction began to rise again. Broken windows repaired themselves, shattered streets repaved, and scorched earth transformed into lush greenery. Within minutes, the area was restored to its former glory, looking better than it had in decades. The demonstration left everyone speechless. It wasn't just advanced, it was miraculous. The aliens weren't just asking for refuge, they were offering something in return. Their technology could heal wounds, rebuild cities, and perhaps even solve some of humanity's greatest challenges. Ryan stood among the crowd, his heart pounding. This changed things. If the aliens could do this for a small part of the city, imagine what they could do for the entire planet. But he couldn't ignore the lingering doubts in his mind. What would they ask for in return? And how much power would humanity surrender by accepting their help? Later that day, Laura approached him, her expression serious. "This is it, Ryan. This is our moment to decide. Do we take the risk, or do we let fear dictate our future?" Ryan looked at her, then back at the newly restored skyline. "I don't know if we're ready for this," he admitted, "but maybe we have to be." Above them, the alien ship remained motionless, waiting patiently for humanity's answer. Whatever choice was made, it would shape the course of both species forever. The debate over whether to help the aliens raged on for days, spilling into every corner of society. News outlets covered the story nonstop, broadcasting interviews with scientists, politicians, and ordinary citizens. Social media became a battleground of opinions, with hashtags like #WelcomeThem and #ProtectEarth trending side by side. The world was divided, torn between hope and fear. In the command center, tensions ran high. Captain Ryan Carter found himself caught in the middle of conflicting voices. Military leaders pushed for caution, warning that trusting the aliens could leave Earth vulnerable. Diplomats argued for cooperation, emphasizing the moral obligation to assist those in need. Meanwhile, Laura Bennett worked tirelessly to sway public opinion, giving interviews and presenting evidence of the aliens' peaceful intentions. "It's not just about them," she told the packed room of reporters during one press conference. "It's about us. Who do we want to be? A species that turns away those in need, or one that chooses compassion?" Her words resonated with many, but skepticism remained strong. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, holding signs and chanting slogans. Some demanded action, while others called for isolation. The pressure mounted, and decisions had to be made quickly. Ryan struggled to reconcile his duty as a soldier with his growing belief that helping the aliens was the right thing to do. He spent long nights pacing the rooftop of the command center, staring up at the alien ship. Its presence was constant, a reminder of the choice humanity faced. One night, he confided in Laura, who joined him under the stars. "I keep thinking about what you said," Ryan admitted, his voice low. "About choosing compassion. But how do I balance that with keeping people safe?" Laura sighed, leaning against the railing. "There's no perfect answer, Ryan. Every choice comes with risks. But if we let fear guide us, we'll miss an opportunity to change everything for the better." Her words stayed with him, echoing in his mind as he attended meetings and briefings. Slowly, a consensus began to form among global leaders. While some nations remained hesitant, others agreed to support the aliens, at least temporarily. A coalition was formed, tasked with negotiating terms and ensuring humanity's interests were protected. The aliens responded to this show of goodwill with another demonstration of their capabilities. This time, they focused on environmental restoration. Barren lands once scared by pollution and deforestation began to heal. Rivers cleared, forests regrew, and wildlife returned to areas long abandoned. The transformation was breathtaking, proof that their technology could address some of Earth's most pressing issues. But not everyone was convinced. Critics pointed out that such power could make humanity dependent on the aliens, eroding self-sufficiency and autonomy. Others worried about hidden costs, questioning whether the aliens' gifts came with strings attached. Conspiracy theories spread rapidly, fueled by distrust and uncertainty. Amid the chaos, Ryan and Laura worked together to draft a proposal outlining how humanity could collaborate with the aliens. They emphasized transparency, suggesting regular check-ins and shared goals to build mutual trust. Laura insisted on including safeguards to protect human interests, knowing that compromise would be key to gaining widespread support. As the proposal took shape, Ryan found himself reflecting on the bigger picture. This wasn't just about accepting help. It was about forging a partnership. If successful, it could mark the beginning of a new era, one where humans and aliens worked side by side to create a better future. Finally, after weeks of deliberation, the proposal was presented to the aliens, using the same patterns and movements they'd used before. Humanity conveyed its willingness to cooperate, but also its conditions. The message was clear: help would be welcomed, but boundaries must be respected. For several tense hours, there was no response. The alien ship remained still, its surface shimmering faintly under the sun. Then, slowly, a single drone descended, projecting holographic images onto the ground below. The images depicted two paths, one showing Earth thriving alongside the aliens, the other depicting destruction and despair. The message was unmistakable: a choice. Ryan turned to Laura, his expression grim but determined. "They're leaving it up to us." She nodded, her eyes filled with both hope and apprehension. "And now we have to decide." Above them, the alien ship loomed silently, waiting for humanity's answer. Whatever came next, the world would never be the same. The decision was made. After days of heated debate, global leaders agreed to ally with the aliens. It wasn't an easy choice. Many still harbored doubts, but the potential benefits outweighed the risks. The aliens' technology could solve some of Earth's greatest challenges, from environmental destruction to resource shortages. More importantly, rejecting them felt wrong. These beings weren't invaders. They were survivors, just like humanity itself. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the rooftop of the command center, watching as the alien ship lowered itself closer to the ground. Its surface shimmered like liquid silver under the morning sun, and a sense of awe washed over him. Despite all the fear and uncertainty, this moment felt hopeful. For the first time since the aliens arrived, Ryan allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. Laura Bennett joined him, her tablet tucked under one arm. She looked exhausted but determined, her eyes bright with anticipation. "This is it," she said softly. "No turning back now." Ryan nodded. "Let's just hope we're making the right call." The aliens wasted no time. Once the agreement was finalized, they began sharing their knowledge with humanity. Scientists and engineers were invited aboard the alien ship, guided by drones that seemed almost eager to teach. At first, communication was slow and difficult, relying on patterns, gestures, and trial-and-error translations. But as trust grew, so did understanding. The aliens revealed secrets about energy, medicine, and engineering that left even the brightest human minds speechless. One breakthrough stood out above the rest: a form of clean, limitless energy. Using technology far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined, the aliens demonstrated how to harness power from quantum fields. Within weeks, prototypes were built, and cities began transitioning away from fossil fuels. Pollution levels dropped dramatically, and skies cleared for the first time in decades. People marveled at the change, their skepticism giving way to gratitude. But not everyone was pleased. Critics argued that humanity was becoming too reliant on alien technology, warning that dependence could lead to loss of control. Conspiracy theories spread online, claiming the aliens had ulterior motives. Some even accused governments of hiding the truth, sparking protests in major cities around the world. Amid the backlash, Ryan and Laura worked tirelessly to maintain order. They organized public demonstrations of the aliens' goodwill, showcasing projects like restored ecosystems and advanced medical treatments. Laura gave interviews, patiently addressing concerns and emphasizing the importance of cooperation. "We're not losing our independence," she told one reporter. We're gaining new tools to build a better future for everyone. Despite the challenges, progress was undeniable. Earth transformed before humanity's eyes. Deserts bloomed into fertile land, oceans teemed with life once more, and diseases that had plagued generations were eradicated. The aliens didn't ask for anything in return, at least not yet. Their generosity only deepened the mystery of why they had come. One evening, as Ryan and Laura reviewed reports of the latest advancements, a message arrived from the aliens. It came through a drone hovering outside the command center, projecting holographic images onto the wall. The pictures showed star maps, coordinates, and depictions of a monstrous fleet, ships larger than anything humanity had ever seen, bristling with weapons. Laura's breath caught in her throat. "They're warning us." "About what?" Ryan asked, his voice tight. She pointed to the image of the fleet. "That must be the Vorthax, the ones who destroyed their homeworld. They're coming." The realization hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. All this time, he'd thought the aliens were here simply for refuge. But now it was clear. They hadn't just run to Earth. They'd brought danger with them. Whatever battle they were fleeing would soon reach humanity's doorstep. "What do we do?" Ryan asked, his mind racing. Laura hesitated, then turned to face him. "We prepare. If the Vorthax are as powerful as these images suggest, we'll need every advantage we can get. That means learning everything we can from the aliens, and fast." Above them, the alien ship remained steady, its surface rippling faintly. It was a reminder of the fragile alliance between two species, united by desperation and hope. Humanity had chosen to help the aliens, but now it faced a new challenge, preparing for a war unlike any it had ever known. As night fell over the city, Ryan stared up at the stars, wondering what lay beyond. The aliens had given Earth a second chance, but survival wouldn't come easily. This was only the beginning.